Hey lady friends, welcome to Become a Podcast Queen. Are you a coach, a consultant, a network marketer, a thought leader, an entrepreneur, a keynote or public speaker, or a creative type? Perhaps you're a hobby podcaster or have a podcast of your own for your business. If so, then you're in the right place. This is a podcast for the heart-centered and bold, badass woman who wants to find, use, and amplify her own unique voice to become an absolute powerhouse in her own podcast. If you're ready to pour your passion and purpose into your very own podcast and have a positive impact and influence in the world while making an income at the same time, then please join me in these empowering conversations. Learn all of my secrets around getting your podcast up and off the ground, speaking your dreams into existence, marketing and promoting your podcast, elevating your brand awareness, growing your downloads and listenership while attracting paying clients and paying customers through the power of podcasting. My name is Olivia Pell, your hostess with the mostest. I'm an international podcast and business coach and a mentor to female entrepreneurs. Tune in each episode for tons of helpful insights, actionable steps to implement straight into your own podcast so that you can put your best work out there into the world. I am here to help you harness the power of podcasting to guide and inspire you to elegantly strap on those lady balls, grab the mic and press record. Are you ready to birth and build your podcast while becoming a queen at podcasting at the same time? We don't wait until we're ready. We unapologetically crown and anoint ourselves to deliver our message. Are you with me? Let's dive in.
Hey Olivia, it's just Kristy here. I know I haven't talked recently. Just thought I'd just give you a shout out and say thank you for everything that you helped me with last year, and I've been keeping an eye on your new podcasts and your stories, and it looks like you're doing an amazing job. I just thought I'd say thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristy, so much for your beautiful testimonial. I really appreciate your kind words. It's so very sweet, especially as this testimonial was very out of the blue and of your own accord. So for those that are listening, Kristy was a previous colleague of mine who I used to work with years and years ago, who turned into a client last year, which was really cool. So we got to work with each other in a different way. So today's podcast episode is about what to do when you hate your voice. You know, it is a common complaint. It's a common thing that I hear clients say where they're like, Olivia, I don't want to do that Facebook Live or that Instagram story or start a podcast because I hate the sound of my own voice. I just don't like it. And to be honest with you, most of us shudder when we hear the sound of our own voice. We think it's either too pitched or it's too low or too monotone or something like that, right? In fact, not liking the sound of your voice is so common. There's actually a term for this, and it's called voice confrontation. You know, I'll be completely transparent here and say that I used to completely dislike the sound of my own voice. I don't sit there and go, God, Olivia, you've got such a fabulous voice. I love it. No, I sit there and I'm like, oh, you know, it's my voice. What can I do? I've got to love it and keep going anyway, right? I know that this particular thought pattern popped up for me and nearly stopped me from starting a podcast in the first place. And it was literally a hump I had to get over. You know, or something I had to work through actually, because you can't just like hop over it and never worry about it again, right? It's something that can hold you back and it can stop you if, you know, you don't have the right mindset around this. So firstly, I just want you to know that it's so normal to cringe at the sound of your own voice. If you love your voice, then all power to you, girlfriend. Go ahead, do what you got to do. Do you know what I mean? And enjoy it while you do it. But for this episode, this is for people that struggle to actually love their own voice and struggle to appreciate it. And the other thing is, you know, before I upload all of my podcast episodes, or my podcast manager does for me, I actually listen to each episode before it airs, just in case I stumbled over my words too much or I said something that wasn't really applicable and I decided to take it out. You know, so even though I'm speaking through each episode, I have to listen to my voice back nearly every week. You know, and when I first started my podcast, that wasn't exactly a comfortable experience, let me tell you. But here's something I want to read to you and share with you, and it's by a person called Dr. Silk Pullman. He's a psychologist at the University of Essex, and he says, I would speculate that the fact that we sound more high-pitched than we think we should leads to cringe, as it doesn't meet our internal expectations, and our voice plays a major role in forming our identity. Yeah, so think about that. Our voice is linked to our identity, and if we're not comfortable with our voice, there's on some level we're uncomfortable with our identity. In addition to this, a neuroscientist at McGill University called Mark Pell specializes in the communication of emotion. He says, when we hear our isolated voice, which is disembodied from the rest of our own behavior, we may go through the automatic process of evaluating our own voice in the way we routinely do with other people's voices. I think we then compare our own impressions of the voice to how other people must evaluate us socially, leading many people to be upset or dissatisfied with the way they sound, because the impressions formed do not fit with social traits they wish to project. So basically what I take from that is when we're separated from our voice and we hear it back, it upsets us and we feel dissatisfied with it because we're worried about how other people socially are going to judge us and our voice. However, it is unlikely that others are, surprised by a high-pitched aspect of our voice. Others aren't sitting there making the same evaluations about our voice that we might do personally. We tend to be our own worst critic sometimes, and we tend not to be critical of other people's voices. So the chances are you're the only person that's thinking about this with your own voice, right? This is the thing I want you to take away from this episode, is that you're the only person who really cares about your voice at the end of the day. And I know that might sound a little bit blunt and a little bit maybe awful, but when I put it that way, it takes the pressure off, doesn't it? You're the only one who cares. Sorry to break it to you, Ashley or Brittany or Julia or whoever's listening. No one really cares about your voice but you. I care about your voice in the way that I want to hear what you have to say. I want to see you empowered enough to rise up and stand up and speak your truth and speak out. But the actual sound of your voice, like the actual tone of it, like no one's comfortable with their voice. And if they are, they're probably a bit more narcissistic, let's be honest. But for the most part, most people don't like the sound of their voice. And if you're sitting there judging it, you're kind of wasting a lot of time, energy, and focus doing that when no one else is really doing that either. And I think what's really underlying this insecurity, if you are sitting there not enjoying your voice, not liking your voice and despising it, is really about perfectionism. Yeah, the voices we hear when we're speaking sound different to the voice that's reflected back to us, even if it's our own, through a device. It's also potentially, I think, a fear of being vulnerable, because when we are speaking up and out about something or speaking our own truth, we tend to feel vulnerable because we're in front of other people, or we're having to confront something ourselves, or we're having to share it with other people, and that puts us on the line for feeling judged. So we need to be more comfortable with being vulnerable, because vulnerable creates connection. Excuse me while I interrupt this conversation for a minute. Did you know that when you want to create your own podcast, it needs a virtual home online before your podcast is available to other platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Google Play Music, and other online destinations? Well, if not, that's okay, girlfriend. You're not the only one. So many women who want to start a podcast just don't know where the heck to have their podcast hosted. When I was researching this, I reached out to a whole bunch of other podcast hosts that I listened to and loved and admired and asked what their thoughts were, and every single one came back to me and recommended Libsyn. Libsyn spelt Libsyn. Word of mouth is so incredibly powerful. So what do I use now? I use Libsyn, and I've never looked back. It was a no-brainer and easy decision to choose Libsyn as the podcasting hosting platform for my own podcast. So I've decided to partner with this professional and amazing company, and I'm gifting this to you to take the overwhelm away for you. So if you sign up with Libsyn, you can get 1 to 2 months absolutely free by using the special code word Olivia to gain this discount. But make sure you sign up with the $20 monthly account so that you get access to the analytics feature, which means you get to see your podcast grow in front of your very own eyeballs. You will have access to see how many downloads per day, per week, per month, and per year. The other thing is, be sure to sign up after the 3rd of the month, so you definitely get that month for free. This is why I started my own podcast on the 3rd of December. So as a recap, Libsyn is spelled Libsyn. Link is in the show notes, and you are welcome. So I want you to think about someone in particular here. When I think about someone's voice that's very, it sticks out in my mind. I can hear it at the back of my head as I'm talking right now. And his voice is Tony Robbins. I remember the very first time that I heard Tony's voice, it sounded very raspy, scratchy, and abrasive. And after a while, I actually grew to really love it. I remember sitting there wondering, oh, can I really listen to this voice for much longer? But the content that he had to say hooked me in, and now I love his voice. I can't get enough of his voice. In fact, I think his voice is a little bit sexy just between the two of us. But this is the thing, does Tony Robbins stop himself from getting up on stage and speaking and spreading his message to millions of people worldwide? He doesn't, does he? People actually throw money at his feet to listen to him speak, to hear him speak. They want to know what he's got to say. And by the way, your voice is worthy of so much more than just your own criticism, And the other thing too is, if we're talking about Tony Robbins for a second, his voice is actually damaged from hours and hours and hours of talking to crowds during motivational presentations like Unleash the Power Within. He channels a lot of mental energy through his voice, considering, the transformations that he, I guess, causes or allows people to go through on the spot, in front of hundreds of people, thousands even, and his voice is an example of hard work and resilience. If that hasn't made you feel more comfortable about your own voice, I want you to think of this for a second. I want you to imagine yourself sitting in your chair or, if you're driving in the car, I want you to see yourself as a bird's eye view. I want you to come up and out of your body for a second and visualize what the back of your head looks like, or the side of your body, or the front of your face, yeah? And zoom up and out of the picture. I want you to think about the thing or the person or the energy or the force outside of yourself that created the magnificent masterpiece that you are as a human. All of the atoms that have come together to make you the human being that you are, that makes your arm be able to move and, your stomach digest food and all this beautiful stuff that happens within your body, right? Your cells and skin to regenerate. I want you to think about your creator, whoever or whatever that looks like. And if you don't believe in anything spiritual or religious for a second, just try this belief on for a sec, yeah? So your creator has made you and has crafted you to the best of their ability, yeah? And they've placed you on this earth to do whatever it is that you're meant to do here. And when your creation turns around and says to you, I hate the sound of my own voice, how would that feel? How awful, what an insult that would be, to this beautiful thing that you've created that you think is perfection in your own eyes, that is your masterpiece. And then they turn around and go, I don't like what I am. Like, I think for me, if I was ever in that position, it would be such an insult and such a disappointment that they would feel that way about themselves, and it would feel like an insult to the creation that they've made. And by you turning around and saying, even speaking the words, I hate my own voice, that is such an insult, because someone out there is going to freaking love and adore your voice, even if you don't right now. But for that to happen, you need to become more comfortable with your own voice as well. The other thing to be considerate of here is the fact that you aren't mute. Yeah, you have the ability to speak. Now think about the times that you've been sick, right? Or you've lost your voice, or you've had some vocal cord sort of, temporary problem, 12 hours or 24 hours that you couldn't speak, that you tried to speak and communicate with your colleagues or your parents or your partners or your kids, whoever it is. Remember how frustrating that was when you're trying to get your message across and you just can't, and you think, oh my gosh, it's just so simple. Why can't I do this? Imagine how frustrating it is if you couldn't talk permanently. Yeah, that would make communicating so difficult. That would make your life so much more difficult than what it needs to be, right? So we need to be more grateful that we have the ability to speak and have the ability to listen to, by the way, not just speak. The fact that you have a voice and that you can use it, that you're not disabled. Yeah. Your voice is basically your fingerprint. So everyone is born with different fingerprints, right? And even with identical twins, their fingerprints aren't exactly 100% the same. Your fingerprint is unique to you as a person, as an individual. And it's the same thing with your voice. No voice is exactly the same or is an exact replica or copy of anyone else's voice out there. When it comes to snowflakes, for example, no two snowflakes are the same. They're so unique and individualized. They're so different in their patterns, even slightly, right? So there's no such thing as two same snowflakes. Once again, your voice is no different. Your voice is unique. Your voice is your own. It belongs to you and nobody can take that away from you. Your voice is a gift. So it's time to show yourself some love. It's time to appreciate your voice, your ability to speak. Because at the end of the day, truth bomb, it's the only one you're ever going to have, just like your physical body. We can't switch our bodies to someone else's body. It's not like we can go shopping like for a top, but it's someone else's, physical body and we can just swap it over. It's the same thing with our voice, yeah? So show it some love. Speak to yourself kindly about your voice, and I promise you that you'll start to sense a shift in how you feel about your own voice and how you speak. And as I said, if that doesn't work, imagine what life would be like if you were mute and you couldn't speak and communicate your basic needs or more. You know, I think of it like this. I am 6'2". I have got my dad's feet. I've got size 12 feet for a woman, which, believe me, is quite difficult to buy shoes with, let me tell you. And the fact that I'm tall means that, you know, I choose not to wear high heels all the time because, one, they're uncomfortable, but two, I don't need them. I've already got the height. And if I do wear heels, it's just kitten heels. Now, this is the thing. For so many years growing up and most of my 20s, I despised my feet. I hated my feet because I was like, oh my gosh, I hate going shoe shopping. You know, finding shoes was such a pain in the rear end. And the last few years, I've just come to realize that my feet are such a huge blessing. It has gotten me through hundreds, if not thousands of hours of, you know, not only walking, but like working. You know, being a nurse and a midwife, you're constantly on your feet all day being a health professional. You rarely get to sit down. And if you do, it's just to do notes, or it's just for a very short period of time, right? You're always expected to be on your feet, walking, going from room to room, checking up on your patients, doing your obs, your meds, you know, so on and so forth, right? So when I reframed it and I thought of it like that, I was like, wow, I'm so grateful that I do have the ability to stand, the ability to walk. You know, I'm not in a wheelchair. My feet have carried me through 29 years of life, through all my degrees, through all my placements, you know, all this sort of stuff, right? So through all the running at the gym as well, guys. So I had to actually reframe the whole thought process around my feet, and I had to become grateful for them, you know, and that changed the feeling in my body, and it changed my attitude as well towards my feet. And as I said, this is no different in regards to your voice and making your voice a special thing to you, not a thing that you despise or criticize. So I trust that that helps. I hope that you can start to master and appreciate and enjoy your voice, because I know that there's going to be people out there that actually enjoy your voice, and you're probably more self-conscious about it than anybody else that you can imagine is when they listen to you. So go ahead, happy podcasting, and enjoy your voice. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and listening in. I truly, truly appreciate you and your listenership. I really do. And if you happen to love this episode, feel free to share it with someone to join my podcast quest of empowering more and more women to rise up, find and use their own voices to unlock a podcast of full self-expression, creativity, and freedom. I can't wait for you to show up, share your story, and serve others through your own podcast. And if you want help to achieve this and receive more personalized care, then feel free to email me at oliviapowcoaching@gmail.com to book a consult. Or you can join the conversation in my free Facebook group by searching Become a Podcast Queen Community. If you want to hang out on Instagram, search me at Olivia Power Coaching. See you in the next episode, Queens.